Pleasure to be joined once again on the Goldberg Noon Abraham Law Firm Hotline by Dave Wannstedt, who won a Super Bowl ring as defensive coordinator with the Cowboys, won a national championship ring as defensive coordinator with the Canes, head coach of the Dolphins, Bears, and Pitt Panthers, and for the last handful of years has been talking college and pro football for Fox. Follow Dave on Twitter at Coach Wannstedt. Coach, thanks for your time. How are you?
I'm doing great. Yes, been in Miami here since Tuesday, I guess. So things are pretty active down here. Pretty exciting, to say the least.
As a guy that did a lot with defense, and I know Kansas City brings so much, but when you're preparing for a San Francisco team that can beat you up with the run and then has weapons, how different are these two teams to prepare for as a defensive coordinator?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think that San Francisco is more difficult to prepare for this reason. You know, they back in the day when we would play a wishbone team, for an example, you know, it was an offense that you didn't see week after week after week. And so that was new for your players. Excuse me. Then the second thing was trying to get players on your team to give you a good picture of what you were going to see on game day was almost impossible because you didn't have those that wasn't the offense that you ran. So when I look at getting ready for San Francisco's offense, I mean, they are 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends, a fullback, and that is different. Kansas City doesn't see that very often, and Kansas City doesn't have all those personnel people. In other words, they'll be using an offensive lineman as maybe their second or third tight end. You know, I don't know who they'll be using as a fullback, maybe a linebacker. So you don't get the practice tempo that you're going to see on Sunday. Where I think on the other side, if I'm preparing for Kansas City's offense, it really just comes down to being sound, preventing the big play, making sure that everybody is disciplined. So, hey, they're going to make some plays, absolutely. They're going to get the ball out, but we got to minimize the plays that they make. That's the big thing with Kansas City. You know, I think they got 3 receivers that have scored touchdowns over 40 yards or more. I mean, where San Francisco's got 1. So, I mean, there's a big difference. It's big plays versus obviously the grind it out play action offense. And I think San Francisco's tough to prepare for.
Dave, how many tricks does a 2020 defensive coordinator truly have up his sleeve, in your opinion? You know, we always talk about during the 2 weeks, and maybe Andy Reid or Shanahan could put in a couple of wrinkles, run a couple of things that maybe have never been on tape all season. But what could you do? You know, how much could you throw at Mahomes or Jimmy G in which they go to the sidelines and they go, we haven't seen that before. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, how many tricks do you have in modern football up your sleeve as a defensive coordinator these days?
Well, I think I'll just tell you this. We ran the same blitzes against Buffalo in the Super Bowl that we ran opening week against the Redskins, okay? And I bring up that point because I think it comes down to, in big games like this, not necessarily the team that makes the most great plays, but the team that makes the least amount of bad plays. And how do you prevent bad plays? You got to make sure that your players are thinking clearly so they can play fast. You know, clear mind equals fast feet, we used to say. In other words, let's make sure that we don't experiment in a game like this and end up giving up a 40-yard touchdown play, and that's the game. Let the players win the game for you. And so I think that each one of these defensive coordinators, they got a couple new blitzes. I did too. I mean, every big game you would, but I think you got to be careful when you're going to use them and if you're going to use them, because it could impact, obviously, the outcome of the game.
When you're going into your first Super Bowl, like both of these guys are, how did you and the coaching staffs you worked with, when you look back at the first time, how did you prepare your team differently than maybe when you went back with Dallas? How different is a first Super Bowl for a team?
Well, we try to get as much work done. In fact, pretty much, I would say 80% of the work was done in Dallas before we went to L.A. The Super Bowl was in Pasadena then. So, we wanted to make sure that because you can say what you want. When you come to, even when you go on the road and you go into a hotel, the meeting rooms are different. The training rooms are different. Your film setup is different. It's all your tape and all your meetings, being in your facility where you can lock the door and you're going to have better focus. You're going to have better player attention, and you're going to have obviously better equipment and facilities to maximize your time. So we tried to do as much as we could before we left Dallas. And then when we got to the Super Bowl, we had our practices and we had our meetings, and we kind of pulled off the physicality of it. And it was more mental reps, as we say. You're still practicing, you're still having your meetings, but it's not what it was, in my opinion, at least back home.
We're talking with Dave Wannstedt, won a Super Bowl with the Cowboys, former head coach of the Dolphins and the Bears and the Pitt Panthers. Follow him on Twitter at Coach Wannstedt. When you look at Mahomes, I mean, I try not to say things that can come back and bite me, but I kind of feel, Coach, as if I'm watching Marino with mobility. And that's pretty ridiculous to say something like that, but that's kind of what I feel like I'm looking at. That this guy, he's Favre, only he's bigger. He's Rodgers, only he's even more athletic. I mean, you know what I'm getting at here? That he's kind of almost how we never, LeBron is a big Magic Johnson. I kind of feel like we're looking at Mahomes, and we've seen parts of this before, but I don't know if we've ever seen it all together.
No, I would agree. That's a good analogy. As far as the arm accuracy and the strength that Marino had, and he's got a lot of Russell Wilson in him. Some quarterbacks, when they start moving in the pocket, I would always say, hey, we get this guy moving. Don't worry, we're going to come up with negative plays from a defensive standpoint. Some quarterbacks, like when you see Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes, when they get on the move in the pocket, now, and I'm not talking about running, I'm talking about when they get out of the pocket because of pressure, they are looking to make a play throwing the ball. And that's really unique. Probably half the quarterbacks that I've been associated with, when they get out of the pocket and they start moving, they cannot find receivers and anticipate what receivers are going to do down the field. So that's another big key. And if I'm playing Mahomes, I'm going to make him throw the ball on time. I'm going to make him play like Dan Marino. I'm going to keep him in the pocket. I'm going to tell my defensive ends, I don't want you guys ever coming underneath, trying to flush them out. Let's squeeze that pocket, put pressure on them, that make them throw it on time. I think that's going to be the key because, at the end of the day, he's the best player on the field. He's going to touch the football more than anyone else, right? He's a quarterback. And I would sum it up this way. He does things with the football that you don't coach. And I used to say that, playing Brett Favre every year, we would prepare for all these pass routes and all this stuff. And Brett would just do things that you don't practice for. And that's what this kid does. So, you got to try to be as disciplined as you can, and you got to really, as I said in the beginning, limit those big plays.
Well, I love your point of trying to make him play like Marino. When you do that, Dave, how do you coach then the back seven? If you're telling those ends, contain, don't move, don't let them get out, how much more pressure does that put on your back seven? And then, do you have to play a zone because you've got Hill who can beat any of their players one-on-one? How does that affect what you're doing on the back end?
You know what? I think it all ties in together because San Francisco, they're one of the least blitzing teams defensively in the NFL. They are mostly a zone team. So, the worst thing can happen is Tyreek Hill get the ball when you're one-on-one. He's going to run away from you. And San Francisco's back seven guys, as you call them, they're good physical tacklers, I believe. They don't have great speed. So, it would be a mismatch. They don't have a guy who can line up and cover Tyreek Hill, in my opinion, one-on-one over the field. Not many people can. So I think the zones, if the ball's thrown quick, you're not going to have one guy breaking on the ball. You're going to have two or three guys converging on a Tyreek Hill or a Kelsey or whoever to make the tackle. And I think that's really critical in a game like this. Because you can't double cover everybody. Everybody says, well, double cover Kelsey or double cover Tyreek Hill. Yeah, that all sounds good. That sounds good at a clinic, as I would say. If I was one of my assistant coaches said, let's just double them all. I said, okay, that's when you have the chalk in your hand, that sounds good, right? But the reality of it is it's not going to happen. So I think the zone thing helps San Francisco.
Dave Wannstedt from Fox joining us on the Goldberg Noon Abraham Law Firm hotline. Can the Chiefs stop the Niners running game? Because even when they're winning games here, their run defense has been vulnerable. They shut Henry down for about a quarter and a half, but they only started to shut him down once they got the lead. Can the Chiefs' run defense hold up? Because there's a part of me that thinks, I don't know if Jimmy G's going to have to throw the ball 20 times. I think they can run the ball down these guys' throat too.
Well, that the stats would say that because they have struggled stopping the run. I mean, Kansas City's defense. So, the statistics would say that. I think the key is, though, if San Francisco can take.
Not really the time you want to lose, Dave.
No. You there?
3-point game. I'm here. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you kind of broke up. You said the key for San Francisco, and we lost you, Dave.
Yeah. The key for San Francisco. I'm sorry, I'm going through a appearance here in Fort Lauderdale, so I'm in the car. But the key for San Francisco is, in my opinion, with about 10 minutes, they can do that. Now, play action. Now the stress is on Kansas City's defense. But if they're playing from behind, where Garoppolo's got to throw it, and Kansas City can rush the ball, rush the quarterback, and that's what happens about 90% of the times with the Chiefs. They get the lead, and that changes the whole mentality of their defense.
At the end of the day, who's going to win this, Dave?
Well, San Francisco's my style. And the more I talk, it's funny. I was talking to my Fox guys yesterday. We were talking about doing our pregame show. What am I going to – and I said, I think that I would give the edge because Mahomes is the best player. He's going to touch the ball. He's going to do things they don't coach. But then the more I talk about San Francisco and how they play defense and run the ball, I kind of talk myself into liking San Francisco. I like their style. I think, in the end, I think Mahomes makes a few plays and Kansas City finds a way to win.
He's Dave Wannstedt of Fox. Follow him on Twitter at Coach Wannstedt. Dave, thanks for making time for us. We really appreciate it. Hopefully we can catch up soon.
Absolutely, guys. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Dave Wannstedt, part-time resident of the 239. Ran into him a couple times this year in Chicago in the press box. And Mark, much like Pat Kerwin, he said, hey, as soon as that Super Bowl's over, I'll be in the 239 for the rest of the year.